All right, we're going to do one more video on domain and range just because it's, challenging topic. Remember, what does domain define? Well, that would be the x values. What does range define? Well, that would be the y values. What is a parent function? That's when you take away all of the transformations, so all those extra numbers, and strip it down to just x and y and whatever the function is, whether it's a square root, absolute value. What is a restricted domain? Restricted means that's when you tell what x cannot be equal to. You have a restricted domain when you have x in the denominator, because you can't have 0 in the denominator. What is the symbol for all real numbers? Remember, it's a double-lined R. When would domain and range be all real numbers? Well, when you have an odd-powered function, like a linear function, y equals x, y equals mx plus b, or a cubic function, y equals x to the third plus 7, or any odd-powered function. So y equals 2x to the 5th plus 9x squared minus 8. That's an odd-powered function when the highest power is an odd number. All right, so if I look at this graph, and I'm trying to describe the domain and the range, you can see that the graph never crosses this line, and it never crosses this line. So x cannot be equal to -1, y cannot be equal to 0. Here's a parabola. A parabola has a domain always of all real numbers. The range depends on the vertex. Well, here's the vertex. The lowest y value is -4. So everything above that and including -4. So greater than or equal to -4 is the range. Well, here's a tricky one. You can see that it doesn't cross this value, it doesn't cross that value. That's positive and negative pi over 2. And let's just say it stops there. So we're not going to talk about all the values if it goes on forever, but x cannot be equal to plus and minus pi over 2. Then you can see that the y, let's say those go up forever and down forever. So the y is all real numbers. Okay, if you're going to graph this square root, you got to ask yourself, where does the square root start? So you have to actually do the graph. The graph looks like this. So this starting point is going to be x values greater than or equal to -9 for the domain, less than or equal to 3 for the range. Here's a oops, I don't mean to do that. A hyperbola. So a hyperbola is when you have a domain that's restricted. You can see that x can't be -6. Here's a vertical shift. That means y can't be -2. If you graph it, it's going to look like this. So a hyperbola has a restricted domain and therefore also a restricted range. Inverse square. You can see that x can't be -4 because that's going to give you 0 in the denominator. If you graph this function, I gotta put it in quick. You're going to have 2 branches, but it's never going to cross this line 5. So y is going to be less than 5. Remember, inverse square means your range is going to have an inequality of either greater than or less than the vertical shift. Okay, the rules I gave you on the other video are really, really important. So you should have those written down. If you don't, you need to go back and watch that video. So go to the second worksheet. Same as the first, you're going to sketch the graphs, state the domain and range, and then use your graphing calculators to graph those, and then upload your graphs and the domain and range to Google Classroom. What is this? Life insurance. Because the life is in the insurance. Life insurance. Reach out if you have questions, please.